Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of BSN Long Story Short. Today, we will be addressing one of the most important issues in the industry of blockchain. Why do we need blockchain knowledge in higher education? I am Adam, your host today from Token Insight, a blockchain research and rating agency, and presented to you by BSN and Red Date Technology. Join me today's panel, Professor Daniel Liu from Hong Kong Polytechnic University, Professor Cyrene Johnston from University of Hong Kong, Mr. Brian Song, President of Tsinghua University Student Blockchain Association. Before we jump in, I would like to remind you that we have information on Twitter, BSN Base, that's at BSN Base, a LinkedIn and website for all of these recordings and furthermore information about BSN and Red Date Tech. I would like to give our guests today a chance to introduce themselves and give us a brief introduction and background. We'll start with Professor Daniel.
Thank you, Adam. So, hello everyone. I'm Daniel. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Computing at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. So, I'm working on blockchain, in particular the blockchain and smart contract security. So, I'm excited to join this event. Thank you,
Professor Cyrene.
Thanks, Adam. Hi, everyone. My name's Cyrene Johnston. I'm the executive director of a Master of Laws program at HKU. It's a specialization in compliance and regulation. And that pretty much tells you the kind of orientation that I'm coming to the topic of blockchain, basically from a legal orientation. I spent about 5 years on an advisory group advising our securities regulator here from 2016 through to 2021. And that was really the time when a whole lot of stuff was happening in the market in terms of ICOs and STOs and so on. So we were all on a vertical learning curve. So that's where I am, and I'm sure we'll come back to some of that a bit later. Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Brian.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian, and I'm currently a computer science master's student at Tsinghua University, China. I'm also the president of our school's blockchain association named TUBA. This is the abbreviation of Tsinghua University Student Blockchain Association, as well as currently I'm the head of the education at EduDAO, sort of helping blockchain educations, accelerating blockchain adoptions around the university communities around the world. So yeah, I guess like from all of my backgrounds, you can see that I'm pretty much dedicated to really bring blockchain to the student communities to really inspire these younger generations, to cultivate this next generation of Web3 leaders, to see how we can change or let's say like impact the world. Yeah. So my background is computer science, so I'm more focused on like technical side of blockchain. Yep, that's pretty much it. I guess more about me can introduce later.
Thank you, gentlemen. So let's dive in right away and give a brief introduction about our topic for today. And to discuss that, we'll just start from the blockchain, for example, was considered an alien concept to the general public. However, as blockchain technology has become more widely used in industries such as finance, trade, logistics, healthcare, and education, businesses have realized the value of blockchain technology in fostering trust, transparency, and efficiency. And while blockchain industry has experienced rapid growth in the last years, accompanied by surging startups, blockchain technology would become fundamental technology that builds internet completely and transforms how the IT systems communicate. However, one of the biggest hurdles or challenges that impede the mass adoption of blockchain technology is the lack of talent. Universities throughout the world started varying academic strengths incorporate blockchain practice on campuses, passing on blockchain knowledge to students, providing them with a clear vision of blockchain and assisting them in preparing before entering blockchain-related areas. In this webinar, we invite renowned professors and university students to deep dive into what blockchain courses they have and what's new on the research front, as well as opportunities and challenges blockchain brings to the educational world. So our first question will be, several universities worldwide have incorporated blockchain into their curriculum and made blockchain education available to students. What's the importance of blockchain in education? How can it reshape higher education? And please give us your thoughts. We can start with Professor Siren.
Yeah, I think I see this question from two sides. One is how can universities change blockchain, but also how can blockchain change universities? I think, one of the, and I'm coming at this at the start of this, not from a technical point of view, but if you like, from an ontological point of view, because we need to understand what this is and what it can do. And we talk about talent in terms of, say, computer science departments, engineering departments, the ability to know the relevant coding languages, build stacks, and so on. But that kind of talent, I think, can only go so far if the concept of what blockchain is as a general technology, if the concept is limited, then the talent is going to be encumbered by a limited outlook. So I think that there's actually a two-way conversation here. I think that in education, it's not just about training talent on the core skills that they need to do stuff, but also to appreciate what blockchain is in a social context. And in that sense, there's like a positive forward loop in terms of education helping blockchain develop into something which is, let's say, more complex, more having greater social utility in the future than, say, what it does currently, where there's far too much focus on the idea of blockchain as just being for building cryptocurrencies. And that's an extremely limited understanding. The other side of the coin then is what blockchain can do for universities. And, I think there's maybe we can come back to this later in the talk in terms of how things like non-fungible tokens, NFTs, can actually become relevant to the way things like academic research is undertaken and how universities actually operate, how universities incorporate appropriate relationships with a student body, for example, which is something that universities have always been concerned to do, to give the students an appropriate voice. And now we're talking about a technology where you have this ability to form consensus on a decentralized basis. And hey, why not talk about a student body as part of that decentralized community?
Sounds amazing. Professor, would you like to add something? Mr. Daniel?
Actually, our university sees the increasing demand for blockchain talents. So that is the reason our university recently established a new MSc program in blockchain technology. So we can, this program can train more blockchain talents, and I believe you will also affect the blockchain industry.
Thank you, Professor. From a student's perspective or standpoint, Brian, what would you like to add to what Professor Siren just shared with us? Maybe you can have a different perspective.
Yeah, so from a macro standpoint, I think what Professor Siren said, it really inspired me. And then from my point of view, I think it really comes down to the experience of education while I'm in university. So this experience really comes down to, some of the resources that I would need and some of the achievements that I'm trying to achieve when I'm learning in school, right? So within these systems, within these process, is there any sort of like a point or sort of like a process that can be improved using blockchain? There's this, a lot of students learn about blockchain in their courses with an example of like sort of like a decentralized, open open scholarship systems as an example in their courses using smart contracts. This is a very easy and very how do I say it? It's a very obvious example of how you can utilize blockchain into higher education within as in like the student experience wise, and also what they can achieve using blockchain in school. But the practicality and also the is it really useful for the students? That's something is still kind of debatable. But what I see in a long term is that is all of this motivate is that before I think how our society, at least in Asia, how it was structured before, is like we really had this one teacher teaching you everything, and then you're really just learning it in class, and then just passing down the knowledge. And then it was that Web 2 when we started to have a lot of this, YouTube and a lot of this Udemy stuff available, so that we don't have to stick to this one person or just one school to learn the knowledge. We can learn it from anywhere, possibly. Not every knowledge is available that way, but a lot of the common knowledges are available online, and then we can just learn it. But I think what this Web3 is trying to do, or what it could do in this higher education, is that based on this Web 2 sort of like ecosystem, where a lot of these knowledges are available online or just like anywhere, the process of you creating the educational contents can be verified, as in like it's your contribution, and then also from student standpoint, the fact that you're learning it, this can also be verified, as in like recorded or sort of like it could be added to your resume, so that your ability to do something doesn't have to come from your transcripts from your school, because your schools are the one who are backing the authenticity of your transcript of your knowledge, right? But with blockchain, this role can be passed on to this entire decentralized ecosystem, where everybody, I mean, like blockchain can verify whatever you have achieved in your higher education, and the source of your knowledge can be also verified too, like whether it is high quality or low quality. People can do some governance on it, and there's a lot of space for there's a lot of room for imagination. But I think it is this sort of like making this society more expandable to, and then making everything more connected, sort of, and also a lot of the student process can be I think in general that's like what I'm trying to say. It's like things can be verified, and then you could have your own Web3 resume. Everything that you learn can be recorded, and then all of this will be all automated as well.
That as you're talking, Brian, it makes me think of ZK Snark's zero knowledge proofs, right? Because you're saying, I can prove to you that I know something. I can prove to you that I've had some kind of experience. And I think that one of the things that I've seen in some universities is a move toward universities curating an educational experience, perhaps less so in an undergraduate context, and more so in a postgraduate context. So from time to time, I have some things to do with Stanford Law School. And certainly one of the approaches that I guess the university as a whole is quite well known for, but certainly the law school, is that they really encourage students to go out and do stuff in the world. This is something that we've at HKU, we've also started to do for some time now, in terms of the emphasis of what we call experiential learning, where some of the programs that we have, such as the LIGHT program, puts emphasis on the student actually interacting with, for example, a startup, and solving a particular problem with that startup. And so it moves away from that traditional model that Brian was talking about, not quite as, let's say, heretical as what Brian was saying, but it moves in that direction, which is away from, here's a bunch of content that we're going to throw at you and you need to learn. And it's moving towards saying, well, we need to have people coming out of a tertiary education with experience, with skills that they've learned from experience by dealing in what I would call a curated learning environment.
Yeah, actually, our university is also providing such kind of opportunities. For example, the students are encouraged to take some internship position in some startup. Actually, recently, many blockchain startups would like to provide such kind of positions. Moreover, professors usually have joined or collaborate projects with, say, industry, and students are welcome to take, say, RA or some other positions to join these projects. I think it would be easier for them to learn more than the concept from the classroom.
Like, I guess that brings us to the next question or thing that we need to address as well, which is, what kind of courses do you have in your own universities, professors, and what's the hottest blockchain subject on campus? And are there any blockchain students associations, which is like we see popping up every now and then? And how can we tailor all the courses to students' requirements instead of just the industry as well?
Yeah,
maybe the professor Daniel.
We can start with this. So actually, our university is providing courses for both postgraduate students and undergraduate students. In particular, as just I mentioned, our university just launched the new MSc program in blockchain technology. It should be the first MSc program in Hong Kong, focusing on the full stack blockchain technology and fintech related. And we will provide many new courses covering all aspects of blockchain technology, such as the distributed algorithms, protocols for blockchain, the cryptocurrency and e-payment, the decentralized application development, and say decentralized finance, as well as the blockchain and smart contract security and so on. Actually, we provide many new courses. And for undergraduate students, we also have a BSc program in financial technology and artificial intelligence, which also includes some courses on blockchain, such as the e-payment and cryptocurrency, and emerging topics in fintech on blockchain and so on. So, and if you take a look at the capstone projects provided by different professors, you can also see many projects on blockchain, such as the DApp development, blockchain performance and security analysis, and as well as courseware for blockchain study and so on. I found that many students are interested in taking such kind of capstone project or MSc dissertation on this direction. Thank you.
Professor Saran, from your perspective, do you think the regulatory and legislative education is keeping up with this development in the blockchain industry? We can see that Professor Daniel is doing a lot, or their university as well is like at the front end in terms of like development and tech.
Yeah, I think what Daniel was saying was sounds super. Congratulations on the new core or the new program, and I'm sure that'll be an instant winner, because what I see is that there's been an increase in the number of positions and the number of businesses here in Hong Kong. Hong Kong's been positioning itself to be relatively crypto friendly, notwithstanding some issues floating around on the legal and regulatory front. But certainly from my point of view in the program that I run in compliance and regulation, there's certainly a lot more positions which are being advertised, where you've got everything from startups through to quite sophisticated crypto exchanges looking for, and I should, before I go on, I should say it's not just that, it's also the whole metaverse NFT industry here. You know, we have some pretty big names which are based in Hong Kong, and they need lawyers, and they need regulatory experts, and they need compliance staff who have a really good understanding, not just about the envelope of laws and regulations that might apply, but they really need to, I mean, to fulfill their function, they need to understand what it is they're dealing with. And this is, as I alluded to before, I think this is frequently the first problem that one encounters in an educational context. And I think we have all encountered this, you know, within the past, say 5 to 10 years, depending on when you first got involved with blockchain. It's this understanding of what is it exactly, and what are its parameters, and what things can it reach into. And so what we've been doing over a period of time is in the compliance and regulation program is basically building in more and more on the cryptoverse, getting students to understand what blockchain is, what's the regulatory approaches, not just in Hong Kong, but you know, very much internationally. You know, things that are happening in Europe, MICA, or in the United States. These are things which are really fundamental to understand. Japan is also huge in terms of understanding the way that they've been approaching the regulation of cryptocurrencies, at least. And I think that the next phase that we need to go to, and this is something that I write about in a book that I came out with last year, what's that called? Rethinking the Regulation of Crypto Assets, is we actually need to move beyond thinking about blockchain as something that makes stuff like Bitcoin. We need to move well past that. And in fact, you know, the timing of our particular meeting is quite interesting, because right now the market is having a major meltdown. And while that's obviously bad for a lot of people, and it's going to make startups difficult, and there's going to be some quite a bit of pain felt around the place, I actually think it's part of the process by which we move past the concept of blockchain as cryptocurrency and nothing else. And I think it's part of the process where we start to have to look at blockchain as doing other useful things. And so certainly, you know, things which are covering law and regulation, what are smart contracts, where does privacy fit into all of this, intellectual property issues, these kinds of things are covered in many of the courses that we teach at the moment. On the side of those courses at HKU, we also have a joint venture with Standard Chartered, the bank, or the charitable part of the bank, and called the FinTech Academy. And FinTech Academy is, by its name, is dealing with a whole bunch of fintech stuff, but certainly an important part of what it's looking at there is looking at issues which come up in a blockchain context. One final thing to mention is maybe a great segue to Brian is we do actually have something at HKU called the blockchain at HKU, and it's actually a student run group. Where what they're doing is basically trying to reach out to the community to educate, to facilitate innovative projects, to promote discussion, to try to get members of blockchain at HKU in front of people in the industry. So I'll stop there, and I'll perhaps that's a good point to pass over to Brian.
All right. Yeah, speaking of blockchain at HKU, I think that's like the very common naming patterns of blockchain clubs of each university schools. Universities such as like blockchain at Berkeley, blockchain at Columbia. That's like their naming style. We could have stick to it too, but we named two, but before we realized that. But yeah, I think what they're trying to do is very, very similar to what we were trying to do. But yeah, definitely. So I guess like to answer the question, it's like, so what are some of the blockchain courses available at our university? I guess like instead of speaking of our university alone, I will say like the entire like interland China alone. I think there hasn't been much of a blockchain courses available just yet, but there has been some attempts in Tsinghua and other Chinese schools. Well, so there are like three most popular ones in Tsinghua for now. One is from Professor Luo Mei, of Research Center for Digital Financial Assets at Tsinghua SAM. She talks about DeFi, the financial significance and activities on blockchains, and invites famous guests from the industry. Last time I remember she invited the co-founder of Sandbox to give a speech, etc. So she has been really at this front line of connecting the industry to the Chinese students as a professor. She's probably like one of the very elite ones who's doing it. But that's from the financial aspect. And then other than that, we also have a computer science department professor, Xu Ke. His course focuses more on the fundamental technologies of blockchain, pretty much from head to toe, ranging from Bitcoin core EVM structure to the hottest topics, including zero knowledge proofs and so on. I think courses like this are quite available in different universities because tech is usually the one to dig in first because it has a very clear research direction, as in like the performance and the limitations of blockchain. You can't calculate it using math, but like so and then technical speaking of tech to research in the technical aspects in internet China is well allowed and that is well encouraged too. So a lot of our professors are researching on the underlying text, the consensus protocols, and also the permission blockchain, how people can apply that in the Chinese markets. And I think like another types of blockchain courses available or research centers available lately. I think just like last month, Renmin University just announced a metaverse lab. I don't think they're specifically focusing just on blockchain metaverse, but it is certainly one of their branch. And then they're really at the very forefront of researching how to integrate this metaverse thing, how to research on this metaverse thing, and as well as implementing blockchain into their future visions of the metaverse that they're researching on. All right. And you mentioned about like, is there any blockchain student associations? So our blockchain association, it is also this student blockchain association, and I'm currently the president of it. And then what we do, there's several things that we do, but I think the reason why we are doing these several things, I will have to explain a bit, because after years of hosting events, hosting meetups, and then just talking to these different students, they always approach to me or us with the same or similar questions, as in like, and then different types of students have very similar questions within their sort of like types. So I'm not trying to categorize people, but each students have different skill sets, different interests, and each students have different levels of understandings of blockchain and so on. So to fulfill this big spectrums of interest from all students, we have provided varieties of courses or events for students. So one includes we have one boot camp that is specifically for Web 2 students. So Web 2 students, as in someone who has no experience in Web 3, they're probably not from computer science, or they're probably not from finance. They're from other majors that, for now, still have some distance with the blockchain industry. Then we would like to introduce this blockchain concept by using their major cross blockchains as examples to invite guests from different fields. So one could be like carbon X blockchain, and art X blockchain, and also biology X blockchain. So this is sort of like the boot camp that we provide currently. So at peak, we had 7,000 students attended at our event to learn about what blockchain can really mean to their major or their backgrounds, or at least just to get started in blockchain. All right, and then the second types of sort of events that we provide for students, for Web3 students, I would say. So Web3 students, how we define it is that the ones who are already in this industry and they're trying to catch up with the industry, trying to educate themselves to match the society's needs, and also try to, from that point, they can do some creativity of their own. So what we do is we connect with the pioneering leaders from the blockchain industry and provide them, different events and courses, lectures for them. All right, and then we also there's a huge community who really wants to transform from Web 2 developers to Web 3 developers. So we also have a dedicated course, which we call it a Learn Blockchain Development Zero to Hero series. And like how MIT and a lot of this, how MIT just launched one of the blockchain courses recently, and then how they reward the students who accomplish the course is that they will reward an NFT certificates. So we also have that. Is one of our approaches to make this learning experience more decentralized. But yeah, other than that, we have a lot of other stuff going on. But I think this is how our schools are trying, how a lot of these Chinese blockchain associations are also trying as well. We're just an example of them.
Thank you. Well, as we dive deeper into the whole thing of blockchain verse and the multidisciplinary and cross-field technology that we are talking about, could you give us a few examples of the research or interests that fall into any of these categories, such as cryptography, mathematics, economics, or law, that you are working on currently? Professor Siren?
Yeah, sure. Well, that my area of interest is I see blockchain as a technology that is capable of improving society and changing the way we do things in society. I don't subscribe to the view that we have to lose everything centralized and go 100% decentralization. But I do think that we need to find ways of incorporating this very interesting and very useful technology. But in the process of doing that, traditional concerns come up, as with the introduction of any new technology to society. Planes, okay, they're potentially dangerous. And similarly, this kind of technology is also potentially dangerous, in that there are persons who will want to game and abuse the technology to try to get some personal advantage. And so what we're talking about is really consumer protection, a very traditional concern. And that is, my interest is, how do we begin to think about regulating this technology without actually fundamentally changing it and what it is capable of doing. And so the book I referenced before, at the end of that book, I make 5 proposals for how we should be thinking about regulating the technology differently from what we're doing today. So there's a particular model that I propose, but one of the things that I think that we need is we actually need a different kind of regulator. At the moment, putting everything under financial regulators, if we look at the United States, we've basically dealing with the Securities Exchange Commission, the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, and FinCEN. These are regulatory bodies which have been established to deal with financial stuff. It is just not appropriate to take blockchain as a technology and to somehow say that they're the right people to look at how to develop it. If, as I like to say, if you ask a securities regulator a question, you are going to get a securities regulation answer. Okay, that's their DNA. That's what they've been shaped to do. And so one of the proposals that I've made, which is something I'm still continuing to work on, is that we need a different kind of regulator that actually stands above securities regulators, that's able to look at technology per se, and to say, well, how can we go about thinking about this technology in a regulatory manner that doesn't presume what it is or what it is not? And the particular model that I've presented in the book basically breaks down what the analogy I like to make is breaking down molecules into atomic elements. Because at the moment, the regulatory approach is we're just regulating molecules. In other words, we're regulating products, but we're not getting down to the elements of the technology. And I think if we move that the regulatory dialogue down to what I think is atomic elements of the technology, then we have an opportunity of creating a regulatory oversight which enables consumers to be protected, enables developers to just develop a whole bunch of stuff to mix up those atomic elements in a lot of different ways without being second guessed as to what it is after they've made it, which is a real problem now. I mean, you think about some of the lawsuits that we've seen recently in the United States, like Ripple, for example. They've been around for years, and then one day the SEC wakes up and says, "Well, we're going to bring a suit against you." I think one of the big challenges for the blockchain industry and for startups, whatever it is you're thinking about doing, is that risk of ex post judgment, that you produce something which you think can be described in a certain way. But then once you've deployed it, once you've gone out, once you've started to get a bit successful, once your project has kind of got on the radar screen in society, then somebody such as a financial regulator pops up, looks at it with their particular eyesight and says, I think that that falls into my regulatory jurisdiction. And I think any developer, or not any developer, I think a lot of developers are working on projects where they think, well, I'd like to do this, yeah, but it kind of falls into this gray area where I'm not sure whether it's going to get caught out later or not. And what I'd like to move toward is something which says, well, if you comply with these basic requirements, which are not straitjacketing developers, then your treatment afterwards is clear. And I think that would actually promote blockchain development compared to the current uncertain situation. So these are the things that I'm thinking about currently.
That is definitely a very special perspective and very interesting one, actually. As you said, now most of the regulators looking at the blockchain technology from a molecular level, but in order to kind of regulate something that is cross-field and cross-disciplinary, you have to break it down. And I guess that, from my perspective, I guess if I get this right, it should work both ways as well. Even for blockchain projects or startups, they should have more diversity in terms of like backgrounds on their own teams, so they can bring people to enhance or bring products or services that solve real world problems, not just focusing on the securities aspects. So they, and then probably even from the regulatory aspect as well, maybe we can have subcommittees in congressional level that have different people from different backgrounds. In the case of US, not just SEC or other financial regulators as well. I guess Professor Daniel will have a different perspective on this matter as well. Anything
I've got a question for Daniel as well. But just a quick riposte to what you said is, I think, Adam, you put your finger on it, that it is multidisciplinary in nature. And so if you start to think about what an oversight agency might look like, you actually need people from different those different segments that get involved in this kind of technology to bring different points of views, to challenge existing points of view, to look at not just what we're doing with it today, but the prospects for it. Now, my question for Daniel is, I'm talking about some of the problems for developers because there's a bit of an uncertain future out there once you've deployed something. I'm just really curious as to what your perspective is on that. What experiences you or Brian have had in terms of developers being, they come up with an idea and then they kind of hesitate because of the legal or regulatory uncertainty.
So actually, I agree with you that we need regulations on those crypto assets as well as other blockchain-based applications. Actually, I'm working on another kind of security, cybersecurity, related to smart contracts and blockchain systems. So actually, first we design and develop tools to identify security vulnerabilities in smart contracts. So usually the attackers can exploit these vulnerabilities to make profit. Actually, they can maybe just send a few transactions and then the crypto assets will be transferred from the victim to the attacker's account. So that is one topic I'm working on. We are also developing tools to help developers to improve the performance of smart contracts. I believe many of you may know that if you execute a smart contract on a blockchain, you need to spend some money. In particular, if you execute the smart contracts on Ethereum, you need to spend gas. But we can optimize the smart contracts so that you can save some gas. So this is one direction I'm working on. Another topic I'm working on is to propose algorithms and develop systems to analyze the transactions. Just as what you mentioned, we need regulations on, say, blockchain-based applications. Then, according to my understanding, if we want to check whether an application is compliant to a certain regulation, we need to monitor the execution of the applications, right? In particular, the behaviors. Then the transactions on the blockchain system can be considered as their behaviors. So we design algorithm to capture those misbehaviors. For example, like scam or attacks or even money laundering activities. So this is another topic I'm working on. I'm also working on the security and performance issues in the underlying blockchain platforms. Nowadays, there are already many public blockchains as well as some permissioned blockchain systems like Fabric. So in terms of public blockchain, there are Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so on. So we are investigating their security and performance issues. So if the security issues are not fixed, the attacker can even take down the whole underlying blockchain system. That's all.
Thank you, Professor. Just going back to Professor Siren's question, he asked whether you have witnessed firsthand some of your students that feel hesitant on going on with their projects or ideas, just fearing the precautions or the outcome from the regulatory bodies in the future. Have you witnessed this in one of your or some of your students, for example, Professor Daniel?
Actually, currently, my students are working on analyzing the smart contracts as well as the blockchain systems. We also try to learn the regulations on cryptos. I heard that there are some preliminary draft of regulations on them. And we are also doing some research related to RegTech, but focusing on another subject, that is mobile apps. But for the cryptocurrency in particular, blockchain-based applications, since we haven't come across the specific regulations, so we haven't been conducting research on it yet.
Just to quickly comment on that, I think that the what Daniel's doing in terms of analyzing behavior on blockchains is super important. Part of the whole rationale of blockchain is the idea of public auditability, and unlike other things we've had before, all the information is there. You can see every Bitcoin transaction since the Genesis block back in, was it January 2009?
Exactly.
It's all there, and there's I think there's not enough research being done on how we can extract information from all of that information. There are companies out there that I shan't mention here, but there are companies out there that are doing it. But there needs to be more of that, and I think to some extent that's almost a precursor to being able to develop our understanding of how to regulate blockchain further.
Exactly, I totally agree with you.
I also have a question. I actually have a question to Professor Daniel. Is that you mentioned you're working on a tool that can analyze the code and then discover the exploits. So I'm just wondering, because it's like there's a lot of auditing firms available out there, and it costs a lot to actually use them and then come up with an auditing report. I'm just curious, like from your perspective, I don't know if you have any experience with encountering with them, like how authentic do you think that's like very important for these different projects? And then I don't know, like do you think like having your tools available later, like is there still needs for those companies to exist?
That is a very good question. Actually, in my research area, cybersecurity, actually you cannot. So how to develop a tool that can automatically discover all vulnerability is still an open problem. So actually nowadays we can just develop a tool to facilitate those security experts to identify vulnerabilities. That if you, so that just as you mentioned, there are many security auditing companies working on blockchain-based applications. And they still need tools to facilitate them to speed up this investigation, because it's not an easy job. If you just take a look at thousands of codes, moreover, sometimes some severe vulnerabilities will be hidden in the deep paths, and they cannot be easily discovered by existing tools. That is why we still need manual effort to discover those vulnerabilities. But with our tools, you can speed up the auditing process. And for example, you can just let the tool run for maybe a week, and then the tool may help you discover some unexpected vulnerabilities. But of course, nowadays, when we design the tool, we usually expect some kind of patterns of the vulnerability. But for the unknown vulnerabilities, we still rely on experts to find them out. So, for example, sometimes we will also take a look at the bytecode or the source code of the smart contracts and see whether it contains vulnerabilities. Thank you.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Cool. I guess it's my turn to answer the question. So you were asking about like major interests in the blockchain.
Well, actually, we can stick with the Professor Siren's question to both of you, which I guess begs itself still. Do you or your, for example, fellow students have faced like some challenges when it comes like to deploying your own projects or ideas from the regulatory aspect? Was that like a
Right. So I have a couple of friends, and well, I guess like some of our friends who are also students, you know, they're actually developing smart contracts. So the way usually how it's done is that, you know, not a lot of the new creations are done actually, because everything is open source. We really start from a base where it is already quite well structured, as in like, you know, forking others like repos, and then from there we'll add on our 10 to 20% or even 50% of our creativity. So kind of like adjusting it and modifying it. So with that, we kind of have this mindset that, okay, we want to stick to the pattern that the original project was developed, so that, you know, so that it has less risk when it comes to, but yeah, we have a couple of folks who are doing research on the as smart contract security as well, as in like exploits and etc. So what they do, so how we can achieve, like, at a very simple term, is that, you know, our pretty much is like, you know, our students who are learning smart contracts, they don't really care about it, so they'll just do it. But if they eventually want to launch a project, like I said, they will start from like a very mature framework, and then from there they'll stick to the pattern. And then once they develop, they'll eventually find an auditing firm, and then from there they will launch their project. I don't think they're really scared of launching this project. They will be worried, but eventually they will look for opportunities to gather their funds, and then with that funds, they will do their auditing jobs to get their project launched, because, you know, this blockchain hype is still out there.
That sounds amazing. And when it comes to blockchain use cases, are there any research and how this research and higher education are affecting each other, like both ways?
Yeah, maybe I can introduce some
yes,
examples. Actually, our university recently just established a research center of blockchain. So actually, in our university, there are around 30 professors working on blockchain and blockchain-based applications. So they are doing many interesting research. For example, in our department, Professor Cao and Dr. Jiang proposed new consensus algorithms and developed Polychain. They are also investigating the blockchain-empowered edge computing. There's another professor, Professor Guo, who is investigating the sustainable off-chain payment channel, as well as the concurrent control for smart contract execution. We have also other professors working on the blockchain database, scalable blockchain database management system, as well as the cryptography protocols for protecting the privacy information in transactions. And we have also professors working on, say, blockchain-based approach for logistics and blockchain plus carbon neutrality, as well as the NFT and decentralized identity management. So actually, there are lots of interesting research that have been carrying out in our university. Thanks.
That sounds amazing. It seems or sounds like your team of professors is touching on most of the very sensitive topics out there in the world to solve them using this technology, I guess. Professor Siren, would you like to add anything from your side? Professor, I guess you are muted. No worries.
Okay. Yeah, just to add one thing to pick up from what Daniel was saying, because I'm aware that we must be tight on time at the moment, is ESG and sustainable finance and carbon footprints and so on. This is actually another area of my research interest, which hitherto doesn't have a whole lot to do with blockchain, but actually it's becoming to do with blockchain now, because one of the exciting prospects is to create dynamic NFTs. That is, that NFTs actually respond to inputs that are responding to, for example, the carbon footprint of a company, what's happened today on its chimney stack, and I think the ability to take this kind of goes back to something I was saying before, the ability to take a piece of technology like blockchain and to find a solution for it to a social problem. And obviously one of the headline social problems that we have globally at the moment is the concern about climate change, existential threat, Paris Agreement, net zero commitments 2050 or 2060, and actually blockchain is one of the things that might help us to get there. So this is something that that I'm starting to add to my research portfolio, because I just think it's going to be incredibly helpful.
Indeed, definitely. Brian, would you like to add something in terms of the research
Yeah, so I guess all I can say is, I guess for this question, I can say something from my personal point of view. I personally think in order for blockchain to really thrive, to make it into actually a thing for majority of the people around the world, we need more ways to connect the real world scenarios or data to blockchain, not only using Oracle or Bridge with ZK rollups, and also, with zero knowledge, not rollup only, but also like the privacy preserving parts, how we can preserve one's privacy on blockchain, so that other people will like to use blockchain, even knowing that their privacy won't be leaked. Right? A lot of these. So yeah, I personally think this is the future that blockchain really needs to make blockchain more useful for the society. And also, like Professor Siren was mentioning about the climate change issue. I'm also personally a very huge sort of like eco-friendly sort of like minded people, where I really think this earth, we need a better approach to take care of it. We need incentives to actually motivate people to actually protect this earth, other than we have I'm not saying these positive voices are useless or any other. I'm not saying those. I'm just saying maybe it's not motivated enough to influence more people to actually join this movement. Maybe with blockchain on top of it, with a lot of these incentives mechanisms that we could apply to it, people can really live a more eco-friendly lifestyle. So as in like, yeah, so I guess like my answer to the question is that I'm really just looking into any sorts of ways to make blockchain more adoption more available for the mass majority.
Thank you. For the blockchain talent market, ever-shifting skill requirements are challenging, of course, and the lack of talents with blockchain skill set is holding back the advancements of blockchain projects in general. Are there any possible ways to bridge students with blockchain-related industries? Well, business and university cooperation will be an ideal solution for this issue. How do you handle this in your university, for instance?
So actually, in my university, there are many opportunities for students to work with blockchain related industry. First, many professors have collaborative projects with blockchain industry, and they usually recruit students to work on these projects. So, for example, the students, say if undergrad student or MSc student, they can become a PhD student or research student and then join such kind of research projects. Or they can also work as research assistants to contribute to such kind of projects. Moreover, in our university, there are also some hackathon and micro-fund events activities to motivate students to develop their own blockchain-based projects. And recently, there are a number of companies, in particular blockchain-related companies, providing many internship positions to our students. So the students can take such kind of opportunity to develop their blockchain skill sets. And moreover, our alumni and some invited guest speakers will usually give talks to our students about blockchain as well as the blockchain industry, motivating them to enter this blockchain industry.
Three levels at the at HKU, or at least in the Faculty of Law here. Is first of all in the LLM compliance and regulation program that I run. Actually, a lot of the or some of the courses, actually a lot of the courses are taught by persons from the industry. So the course, it's an adjunct professor arrangement. So that, and the students really like that because they get the if you like the fresh blood coming in to talk about what's been happening to that person this week, that day. So the second is I guess the second is a program which is it's a law faculty program called LIGHT, Law, Innovation, Technology, and Entrepreneurship. And I mentioned it before, and basically what LIGHT does is they try to connect students on that program to an actual business to help them with some problem. So that's very much experiential learning with an industry participant. And the third, which crosses across a number of faculties in HKU, it's not just law, but it's computer science, engineering, business and economics, is the FinTech Academy, with which we partner with Standard Chartered. And so those are the three main, I guess, points which respond to your question in terms of how are we connecting between the university and the industry.
Thank you, Professor. Brian, what is the role of TUBA, for example, and the University of Tsinghua, or are there any other bodies within the university that help, for example, bridging the gap between businesses and students?
Right. Yeah, I guess like our courses, a lot of our, especially the one from Professor Lome, she really invites the pioneering industry leaders, blockchain industry leaders to her class and then give educations to her students. And then besides that, I guess like just what we do in general, like TUBA in general, is like we host 1 to 2 well, I think for now it's like around 2 events per month, and then each event is really us inviting pioneering industry leaders to our school to educate our students to bring what their understandings of blockchain to to our student communities, and also not just Tsinghua student communities, but just anyone who pays attention to our events. So it's publicly available. So we're trying to really bring this resources from the industry to the student community. But other than that, like hackathons and a lot of this, we are also preparing to launch a conference. I don't know if around Asia we have hosted something like this before, but we're thinking we're currently preparing to launch a conference that will be virtually available on either Decentraland, or there's another platform that we're in talk with, so that any university students can join this conference. And then in this conference, we're going to have several guests from the industry to give out their lectures in sequence, and then people on the metaverse, they can get connected, and then meet with these projects, and then there's going to be booth for different projects who give out speech in the conference, and then in that booth there's going to be there's going to be a sort of like job description, or it will sort of feel like a job fair for students, and then whether if they're interested or not. If they're interested, they can submit their resume there, and then in return they're going to get their NFT tokens for submitting their resume. So things like that we are currently planning, and then it will be launched in August. So yeah, stay tuned.
That sounds impressive, actually, especially the deploying technology of blockchain itself to help bridge the gap, or bridge students into the businesses or opportunities out there. This takes us to the last question, which is the kind of us together trying to envision what is the future. Like from your own perspective, how do you see the application and research of blockchain in education in the next 5 years look like?
I think that's very easy to answer in one word: expanding.
Amazing.
Yeah, totally agree.
Agree.
Mm-hmm.
Professor Daniel, anything that you are working on and like special that we probably haven't seen, or like something is emerging as a trend in the blockchain industry, but like still not yet apparent?
I think there are lots of exciting and critical research problems in blockchain, which may not be fully addressed in the next 5 years, I think, such as how to design robust, verifiable protocols, efficient incentive mechanisms, sharding, secure and reliable smart contract language, and runtime, lots of problems. So that is why we are very, very interested in this topic, and lots of professors are working on it. Thanks.
Sounds very promising. Brian, anything to add before we?
Right. I guess it's a very big topic for me to answer, but I guess I can say something from my observation. Is that I recently saw a movement or sort of like a term called DeSci. So it's the abbreviation of decentralized science, which it looks like a speculative term, but in fact, when I looked into it, it's sort of like a decentralized research that empowers scientists around the world to work together, without boundaries, because on blockchain, you can verify your commitments, your contributions, yes. Whatever you have done, it's all recorded there. You don't need to have a centralized authority to back whatever your contributions, and also the funding process, and also making the proposals of the research itself. And also, one of the pioneering idea is that they're thinking of making the research paper publish system a decentralized version where they probably might have some qualified people to join as the validator to really review the papers, and then in return they're getting some sort of incentives I'm not expecting token because it's science. It's probably going to be some authority in the decentralized science community, maybe, but who knows? Yeah. So we'll see where this will lead us. And of course, Tuba will be at the front line of this. So we're paying close attention. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Sounds like, yeah, exactly. Sounds like a new consensus mechanism, probably proof of review, as in reviewed. And I guess Vitalik,
however you want it.
I guess Vitalik as well recently came up with a paper partnering with two members of the Ethereum community, diving deeper into the concept of decentralized society. I think that's something that kind of sound very promising as well, especially to kind of build an umbrella on top of all of these blockchain or decentralized prospects that we have been seeing recently. I guess that's it. Anything else we have missed? But hopefully we can have another chance to continue this discussion or this conversation when we have more in-depth and more information coming up, because one day in blockchain is too many months or years in the ordinary world. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us, Professor Daniel, Professor Siren, and Mr. Brian. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Inviting.
Thank you.